All right, we are recording now. All clear. Episode whatever with Master Sergeant retired David Henderson. He was Joey and I's Master Sergeant during our most of our first workup and our first deployment, and then I think you retired shortly after we got back from Iraq.
I did.
Then you left us forever, and we'll never forgive you.
Yeah, never forgive you for that one. You know, I gotta say to the people, he's the guy that everybody who is in the Marine Corps probably wants to go back, and we're just waiting for that helicopter. You're at your kid's game, we're waiting for that helicopter to land in the middle of the field, and the guy that gets out of the helicopter and hands me the orders and says, "I'm putting together a team, and I need you back." That's you. You're that guy.
Wow, man. Well, I appreciate that kind of a compliment, but I wouldn't hold my breath for that.
So we basically, like, our guests so far have all been people that we served with, our peers and stuff. So this is our first time that we've had kind of our command element on. So I think we'll just go through basically the same formula. Basically to start us out, Joey's reason for joining the Marine Corps was the commercial. He wanted to fight a dragon with a sword. And so
it was a good commercial.
It was a good.
I think that's usually our first question, which is what drove you to join the Marine Corps?
Wow. I mean, it's a good question because we all have different reasons, because I have 0 Marines in my family. I'm the only one. And normally it travels in families. But not to go too long into it, when I was a young kid, Vietnam was just ending up kind of. I was born in 70. And my kindergarten teacher's brother was killed. He was one of the last Marines killed in Vietnam. And my mother said that stuck with me, because from that point on, when I had heard about it, I wanted to be a Marine. I was the kid growing up in the sticks. I had to be in the woods all the time. At that time I played Army, whatever. That was just kind of like my kind of youth and growing up. And as I developed older, I didn't like school. I'll tell you that much. So I kind of, but I was a mid-level athlete, not good enough to get a scholarship. I was not that good of a student. If I showed you my stuff, it would go. And I was looking at Army Rangers, and I was looking at, what's that?
Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Atlanta, outside of Atlanta. I lived there until I was about 11. Then I moved to outside of Chicago in a town called Naperville. Because my dad got transferred up there.
Okay.
Illinois is actually a pretty state, actually. Okay, so you were out in the sticks of Illinois and had to go through some great deal to get your guns. But was it like that back then? Because nowadays it's okay.
No, back then, like it was all like Wisconsin is now. Sometimes kids would show up with a shotgun in the rack in the back of the truck. Sitting in the shotgun rack. There was a couple of kids who would come in with a deer because they went deer hunting before school. It was a different time when it came to it, and my sister's boyfriend was Marine, went Marine Reserves, and I was going in to talk to the Army recruiter, just because I was giving everybody a fair shake, and he wasn't there, so I talked to the Marine recruiter, talked to him, went back in for another meeting. The Army guy tried to corner me. He was a big dude, and this little Marine freaking dude got knee deep in his shit saying, "That's my appointment." And I looked at him like, I like the attitude. That's kind of where I went. And so I graduated high school 6 months early, and I went to boot camp when I was 17 years old.
And what is that, 87?
It was 88. I would have graduated in June of 88. So February of 88, I went into boot camp.
That's a year after I was born. Holy Toledo. So you've been fighting for this country. My God. They weren't joking when they said that at the retirement ceremony.
No, yeah, I mean, it was a long time ago. I hate to say it, but it was a long time ago. And the world was a different place. And I've got a shirt. I tried to get it before I went on to here. Like my friend signed, I kept it before I left for that. It had a big bulldog ripping a Soviet flag in half and said, "Hey, you commie bastards." And,
the good old days.
That was the way of the world back in the 80s. Ronnie was running things. Rambo was running around. Schwarzenegger was shooting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Heartbreak Ridge came out.
Yeah.
Oh, dang, yeah.
It was a different time, but that's why I joined. It was kind of like it was that, and I was a little mischievous as well, so I probably would have gone down the wrong path if I didn't join, even though I planned on it. I would have gone down the wrong path.
Not so different, you and I. Not so different, you and I. You're looking fantastic. What are you doing? Are you staying in shape and still Marine Corps PTing and all? You know.
I do some. What happened? Like when I retired after you guys, I mean, my body was kind of breaking down on me. That's one of the reasons I retired. I couldn't wake up without pain.
Mm-hmm.
And so I retired, sat on my butt for a while. I was raising kids. I'm like, hey, I'm going to live the good life. So I was putting on the average veteran 10 pounds a year.
Yeah.
I got up to about 230, and I was still working on Camp Pendleton. I worked for another company. I was selling on Camp Pendleton. And one of my old Marines was down. He was down to see the CrossFit games. And, he was one of mine from 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, where I was a platoon sergeant. And he grabbed hold of my belly and was laughing at me. Was that bad, bro?
Yeah.
So I went around, and another one of my Marines from that same unit founded CrossFit Temecula here in Temecula. So I drove over there. He said, I got to get back into shape. And, started working out there. My first time was a 500-meter row, and I puked all over the place. And I was like, I love this shit.
Hell yeah.
So I started doing that. I started working on my nutrition more. I started focusing because you go through the same things as an older retiree as you probably do as a young guy. You just kind of like, you don't give a crap when you first kind of get out. You're kind of like, I've been doing this stuff so long, I'm just going to chill. Mm-hmm. And I didn't like what I was becoming. I love the feeling of when I was in the Marine Corps and we stayed in shape.
Yeah.
So
I was a little different.
Yeah. I make it a point to work out every day now. I try to watch what I eat now. Conscious of what I'm putting into my body. All my blood work had gone to hell, and I was on all these meds, and now I'm off all the meds.
Damn right, off all the meds. So we're talking the VA issued. Do you mind us asking what you were on?
I was on insulin. I was on metformin. I was on allopurinol for gout. I was on Xanax for freaking anxiety. That kind of stuff. The normal PTSD drugs combined with high blood sugar and stuff like that.
And diabetic insulin. It clearly wasn't from your body not producing insulin. So it wasn't type. I forget the types, but it wasn't a genetic factor. It was induced by
lifestyle. Another fellow Marine of mine almost died last week because he was the same way as I was, but he never got himself back into shape, and his A1Cs popped over 13, and he was in the intensive care for a week because he didn't stop the downtrodden. You got to take care of yourself, especially as you get older. I got to change your diet. I don't eat as much red meat. I don't drink as much beer. I changed to wine.
Yeah. Hey, it's made from grapes, so it's technically a fruit.
Exactly. It has all the stuff to make my blood flow better.
Yep.
That's basically it. I really work on trying to take care of myself. I wasn't in the Marine Corps. I'll tell you what. You guys probably never saw me without a dip in my mouth.
Right, man. You look younger, bro. You do. It shows, and it's giving me. I just started because I was like super. I got out of the Marine Corps and I got super into shape because I was like, dude, it hit me that I was like, man, I could have tried harder in the Marine Corps. And so I got super into shape, and then I got with my wife from yonder, down south yonder, and she's like eats cheeseburgers every 5 seconds, so you can't beat them, join them. Now she's finally got some jacked up blood work. I'm like, let's get back into shape. So, and it feels great.
It's okay to treat yourself, but you can't be a food group.
Yeah, people saw me, and dude, and people like even some of the people look at me and they look at you with disgust after they saw you in shape. I'm like, oh, that's terrible. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You yourself in the picture, you're like, damn, that's me.
Yeah. Yep. Oh man. So that's funny. Yeah.
So when you first joined, what MOS did you go in as?
I was in 03. Well, I was a recruiter's wet dream. I'll tell you, like, because when I signed up, I signed up for 6 years, guaranteed East Coast, guaranteed infantry.
Hoorah.
And I got a 91 on the ASVAB. So I was like, and so I came in. I was a machine gunner. My first unit was Echo Company 28, and that was a learning lesson. And I will tell you, from those barb times, I was quite the shitbird back then when I was a young Marine. You know, it's a funny story, but I'll get to that in a second. But I graduated ITS, checked into 2-8. I got there in July. In August, I was on my first deployment, heading to Norway for Teamwork 88. I'd had no workups. I'd had nothing. And so I was,
Norway.
Yeah, we were a rubber boat company.
No shit.
So there I was in the middle of the North Atlantic on a Zodiac going into shore in Norway, freezing my ass off, not even knowing what the hell to do. They told me to get off the freaking boat and pull us in. We're going pulling on a fjord. I jumped in, and if I wouldn't have held on to the boat, I would have gone straight down because I still had all my stuff on me. It was that deep.
And it's like ice water.
Yeah, it's like 35, 40 degrees out. Then it starts snowing on us. It was I didn't know what the hell to do. And one of the funny stories is I was like going into hypothermia. So one of the corporals walks up as we were bivouacking, opens up the freaking bag. He like strip him down and put him in. He jumped down and freaking into his skivvies. He goes, "Don't worry, there's no such thing as a homosexual in a freaking cold weather environment." He jumped in the bag with me. And so I was like, damn. So I got up and then freaking, it was a lot of hard knocks. It was 2 weeks in the field right after coming out of boot camp, but I didn't know shit from Shinola. So quick learning lesson. I'm still friends with some of the guys from that unit, some of the senior guys, because they were good mentors to me. Pretty much saved my life. I fell off about a 20-foot cliff there because I slipped in my Mickey Mouse boots.
Oh my God.
Mickey Mouse boots on it. I slipped, fell. My machine gun hit me right here in my chest as I landed on my pack and broke the Alice frame. Oh. And I had a bruise straight across my chest. Nothing broke. And I was sitting in the BAS next to a guy that broke both of his legs falling off the curb.
Oh, damn. And this is back when we had when we did our cold weather training, it definitely wasn't as cold as Norway, but we had better, I don't know if we had better techniques, because I heard, back in the day you guys had wool, and the problem wasn't the cold, there was that you sweat, and then when you stopped moving, it froze. We had the Gore-Tex, so we stayed dry, and then when we got in our sleeping bags, that's when we put on our warm clothes. So it was easy for us. It was actually.
But you had to do the best with what you had at the time. The gear's gotten so much better. That's one of the biggest improvements I've seen. Because I live next to Camp Pendleton, and sometimes I work on Camp Pendleton depending on what I have going on. And so I see what's going on with some of the gear now. I'm like, damn, that would have been awesome. But I remember when I was with 7th Marines, the Frozen Chosen, or they used to call themselves like Chosen Few, would come back and see us from 7th Marines, Chesty's old regiment.
Oh, I got to see one of those men in boot camp. He was so
We'd be sitting there in our flak jackets. I'm like, damn, I wish I would have had that in Korea.
Yeah, your flak jacket. And that was soft Kevlar, right? The flak jacket?
Yeah.
Soft Kevlar, that would stop maybe small arms and maybe a 9mm.
The 9mm maybe, but it stopped the shrapnel, because the shrapnel, as you know, the shrapnel is the biggest one that'll wound you. The bullets do, the rounds do, but the shrapnel from a grenade or a mortar or whatever, goes everywhere. So it stops shrapnel.
Yep, and shrapnel is very cost effective. It's cheaper than a bullet. So.
Exactly, but yeah, going back to there, I was quite the shitbird. I'm not gonna lie. I got my nickname of Hendermouse because I was the smallest one in my unit. I was a scout swimmer, so I did all that kind of stuff. But as you guys noticed, when I was in 1-4, I'm not much for parade. I'm not much for polish. I'm not much for that kind of stuff. So I always wore a medium to low reg. And so I was sitting there one time, and everybody, you remember the old Salty Lance Corporals, right?
How could I forget?
That was Lance Corporal Henderson back in the day. And there's a couple of lessons I learned. One of them, I was talking to my mom one day, and they were heading down to Myrtle Beach my dad had been transferred to Jersey. And they're heading down to Myrtle Beach for a vacation. So we'll pick you up. And I was complaining to my mom, yeah, screw this place, whatever. They don't. And so my mom shows up to pick me up, and I wasn't off yet. But I walked over, and no shit, this is only a mother could do this. She looked at me, and she's like, no wonder you get treated like crap. I'm like, what do you mean? I like the chip. She's like, look at the way you present yourself. So right there, as soon as I got off work, she took me over to Cash Sales, made me buy 2 pairs of camis, a pair of boots, took me to where I got a haircut, freaking went down where I was going to party. She's like, hell no, you're not. Freaking had me do all my uniforms all weekend, spit shine my boots, everything, get ready. She goes, she's like, basically, you're representing our name with the Marine Corps. And she goes, I don't like the way you're representing it.
You got hazed by your mom.
And she wasn't even prior Marine experience.
No, but my mom knew how to build people. She built my dad from a stock boy to the vice president of a Fortune 500 company. So
what?
So yeah, so I mean, but she's like, appearances are everything.
Yeah.
So she did that. I came back. Little attitude adjustment from mom is a good way to get humbled. Started working on things, and then was able to work myself into going on MSG duty out on embassy duty. Which really kind of launched my career in a lot of ways. It was probably one of the greatest experiences. It's the hidden gem of the Marine Corps if you can do it. So I was able to go from there to Nairobi, Kenya, and San Salvador, El Salvador.
Was that your? I know I hear MSG. I don't know if it was the same back in the day, because Todd Frace did it after our first deployment, and he went to. They picked one for him. You go to one that you picked, and then you go to a mandatory craps station.
It was different when I went. You got two. You basically picked a geographical area. So I picked Africa because I figured I'd pick a place that I'd never have the opportunity to go again. So I picked Nairobi, East Africa, and absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it out there. With that one, they extended me there for 18 months. I got selected for a criteria country after that. So I was like, great, from one shithole to another shithole. And I was talking to my first sergeant because they were going to send me up to, I think Addis Ababa is where I was going to go in Ethiopia. And I was like, I'm like, I don't want to spend freaking my entire career in East Africa. I want to see the world. And he looked at me and goes, just when you put in your picks, put in everywhere out of here. So I did. So I wanted to go to South America, and they sent me to El Salvador, which was at that time the only gun-toting post left in the Marine Corps for embassy duty. Like, we had to carry a gun on us every time.
But was it like, did you guys go get to experience like the local area, or was it kind of a shelter? I mean, you guys probably didn't get sheltered much back then.
Not like they do nowadays. I mean, like, we still had to check in. We had curfews. That sort of stuff. But like, you'd get off duty, you had a midnight curfew. Like, if you had a girlfriend in town, you could get like a waiver from your detachment commander to stay overnight because you weren't allowed to have women in the Marine house. But like, we were on a schedule for a while, and we'd work 6 days on, 4 days. I'd go out into the Masai Mara. You go out on a safari. I climbed Mount Kenya. Used to go fishing on a place called Lake Navasha that Teddy Roosevelt filled with Florida black bass. And then spent most of my time, I'd go out and hang out with the Kikuyu. I'd go out and go hang out with the Maasai, the tribal people of Kenya. I'd spend as much time as I could kind of learning from them. I'm really kind of into that kind of stuff. I'm into culture in like everywhere I go. So I try to learn as much as I can. So yeah, you got to absolutely get into the local culture, the local experience. And it's kind of easy when you're living as an American. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I was making probably 10 times what the average person makes in those countries at minimum.
Yeah.
So I got to live a little better than them, but at least I had to go experience the culture. El Salvador was a little different just because of the dangers in El Salvador. They had executed 4 of the Marines 4 years prior to me getting there in the Zona Rosa. So it was a little bit more locked down. Like, all of our vans were bulletproof, rocket proof. About once every other week, somebody would drive by and shoot a rocket at the old embassy. We had nets around the embassy, and they'd shoot a rocket at it. We got jumped by, our bodyguards took care of it. We got jumped by some of the communist rebels at one of the clubs one time. But we had enough bodyguards to take care of it. So
yeah,
it was a little hostile. For a 21-year-old, it was an experience of a lifetime, though, because, you're bulletproof and stupid back then.
Oh, yeah, Marine bulletproof. And for those of you, the Marine Corps doesn't teach how to fist fight. It's all just pretty much tactics and using all your buddies. So it's, it's not like you're going out and beating the crap out of everybody.
It's not like
No.
an 80s action movie. You're not
Yeah,
gonna
too
fight
bad.
everyone in the bar by yourself. You might
Like Van
try,
Damme.
but you're not gonna usually walk away.
How that usually
Not in reality.
ends.
So that had to be close to the Persian Gulf One, right?
Yeah, I was in Nairobi when the Persian Gulf War broke out. I was actually on CNN International. All my buddies saw me back home because I was in the first the first camel marathon in history. So I was in a camel race. And so CNN International did a whole thing on me. I've still got a videotape somewhere of it where I was riding a camel through the desert, and I was the first non-professional to come across the finish line.
Dang. No shit.
Nice.
Yeah,
What?
that's my 15 minutes of fame right there.
What? On a camel.
On a camel, 26 miles.
First non-professional to finish it. Man.
Nice.
So you did did you slay the dragon? Tell me. Did you get a sword and slay the dragon too?
I did slay the dragon.
That's what you had to do before you ES'd, I bet.
So that's what, early 90s. So basically the first more than half of your career was basically peacetime Marine Corps, right? I mean,
Well,
or what would be considered peacetime?
compared to today, yes, it would be peacetime Marine Corps. I mean, with 2-8, I was in Panama for, was it Urgent Fury or Just Cause, whatever, when we took out Noriega. I did a somewhat covert op when Bush was in Colombia for a drug op. That was kind of interesting. We showed
President
up
Zone.
to he put us in the back of Ryder trucks and shipped us to Quantico, and we disappeared for 3 months and nobody knew where we were.
So back then too, whenever I was in, we were known as the president's own because the president can send you anywhere in the world as long as you're like on the MU, anywhere in the world for 30 days. Was that one of those situations?
Yes, but it was pre-planned. We were basically the QRF in case something happened to Bush. Like I was in the platoon on the ground. We had some circling and a C-130, and then you had some offshore on LSTs just in case we had to react if they hit Bogota. It was our job to go do an extraction.
Oh, wow.
So you had that kind of, you had a lot of small stuff going on. We were doing surveillance on the Nicaraguan border. So you had units in Honduras back then. We tried a neo-op to get Lieutenant Colonel Higgins out of Beirut when he was murdered. He was a UN observer. So we had a lot of small stuff going on back then. It was nothing, like you have now till the Gulf War hit.
Yeah, but that's
hours, but they weren't ready for us on that one. All my friends who were there, they weren't even. I mean, we just crushed them.
That's what I'm saying. Those small ops are things that I heard about. They're kind of in history, but like college level history, they talk about it. And like if you get deep into history, I've heard about these things like in my history 2 class. So that's kind of cool that you were a part of it.
That one, and then as soon as I left embassy duty, I checked into 7th Marines, and they shot me over to. I checked in. They're like, "Are you married?" Like, no. Go to supply. Within a week, I was sitting in Somalia.
No, is that during the this is close to the Gulf War. Is this about the time the Black Hawk Down?
I left in May, and Black Hawk Down happened in October. So I was one of the black boots they mentioned in the beginning of it.
Oh man.
So we hit Bardera, Baidoa, came back. They didn't know what to do with us, so we're in Mogadishu, and then the Bakura market was my AO for about 3 months. I was in a checkpoint in the middle of the Bakura market.
God bless.
What billet were you holding then?
I was the machine gun section leader. So they kind of restructured the same way as we did for OIF. So they kind of turned us into like a provisional like rifle platoon. So we still have machine guns. We did that, but we kind of augmented with riflemen just to make sure everybody we could cover all the posts out there.
Okay.
And how many years was this in? So you've just named off a trillion things you've done. So how many years was this?
Basically, that was about 5 years in. Like that was in like.
That was all your first contract, right?
That was the first contract.
Jesus.
What?
I always laugh with people freaking like I took all like when I joined the Marine Corps, it was still like metal bands like freaking Poison and Bon Jovi and that kind of stuff. And I come back and it's like I missed grunge, and freaking Garth Brooks was on his way out.
Garth
What
Brooks.
the hell happened?
Wait. On his way out. Who's Garth Brooks is out? What?
Well, you know what I mean? Like I came back in like 94. Like I missed like his like first 2 or 3 albums. I was like, who the hell's Garth Brooks? People look like, what?
I see what you meant. I thought you meant out of style.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you didn't miss much on the grunge.
Pardon me?
You didn't miss much on the grunge.
I'm not a huge grunge fan, but it was a phase.
Yeah, I mean Nirvana,
Nirvana was the recreation of the Doors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. With less understandable lyrics, because I don't know what he's saying.
This is true. This is true. But yeah, I mean, I did 7th Marines. Did that. We used to do JTFs, hunting for drugs in California.
Mm-hmm.
We used to have Marines on the border, scanning the border. So we do little operations inside of that. We were to me, it's kind of sketchy with a posse comitatus, but they assured us that we weren't in violation of it. So we did that, and then I did a pump on Okinawa to Camp Schwab.
Oh wow!
The first time to Okinawa, and I did a med float as well. I didn't even bring that up. I did a med float. I did 2 Caribbean cruises. All my first enlistment. My first enlistment was like everything I asked for and more.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then you stayed in for 15 more years after that, and
yeah.
So what was it like going from these small sort of operations to bam, 9/11 hits and basically the whole country turns to a war footing? Like, what is that transition like? From Monday to that Wednesday?
It was a huge transition, and I'll give you that in a lot of ways, because we were finally at a point like you'd combine arms a little bit, and you'd do large movements a little bit with the smaller ones, but it was mostly team, squad, and maybe platoon level operations. You start coming in, working on stuff, and you're looking at regimental and division operations, which the Marine Corps hadn't done. I didn't know IF-1. But that large scale and that large of a push hadn't been done since, Korea probably, or Vietnam. So it was a huge transition. We'd always trained for it with CACs, which turned into Mojave Viper. So we'd always kind of trained on that kind of an environment, but it was a whole different war footing going on when you changed issues. Because I remember 9/11 quite vividly, because one of my other benefits of the Marine Corps is I had the privilege of working directly with like legends. So General Dunford, at that time, Colonel Dunford, I was on his staff when 9/11 hit. So I get to see that entire planning cell going in on the operations, going in on what's going where, how are we planning for this, how is this going to happen here? And it was like gigantic to me. It was enormous for what we were looking at in that planning scale. And that's where I kind of started looking on the footing. Yeah, I'd always kind of wanted to be a first sergeant, but I started seeing the importance of operations chiefs and the planning portion and the training portion and that kind of stuff, because I had an acute ability, and a lot of my officers used to use it for me when we would set in. I would be the one setting up, all the kill zones. I would plant the machine guns. I would hit the mortars. We'd set up all, I do all the SDZs because I honestly wanted to be a gunner. If I would have never been married, I would have been a gunner. So I got very much into that kind of stuff, which was a larger footing than what I'd ever seen. Doing ICP routes to bring in, fast movers combined with freaking helos. It was a huge stressful. That's why I used to always have bags under my eyes, and I was always pissed off.
Yeah. And dealing with people who don't come from infantry units, don't see, well, with us, the stuff that I noticed you probably had to deal with was dealing with people who did not come from infantry units. And to me, they seemed kind of like, it wasn't there a dominance or something. It's like they're coming into an infantry unit and we're just a bunch of savages and they're like sophisticated, I guess, but I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. I apologize.
No, I see where you're going. And that, for me, that's one of the downfalls between us and the Army, because the Army normally keeps, the higher enlisted levels you get inside of like Ranger battalions or whatever, grew up in that field.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge when you have somebody that, and I had to deal with it more than once. It wasn't just when I was with you guys.
Right.
I had to deal with it in another unit when I was a sergeant. We had the same thing, because they all put an image in their head of what the infantry is. You know what I mean? They watched one too many John Wayne movies.
Mm-hmm.
They were here and they didn't understand what kind of a barbarian that the infantry actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't understand how to relate to you guys as young infantry guys, where somebody like me honestly related a little easier with you guys because I had been that private digging a freaking fighting hole, you know, and doing that kind of stuff. And, you know, losing friends in training, losing, you know, knowing things that happen, seeing a 53 that goes down or whatever, stuff that, you know, a lot of times they don't have to deal with. Some do, but then they're coming there and their entire life, they built this up in their life. That's why I try to be kind of sympathetic with them because they built up that entire career on trying to become an infantry first sergeant or sergeant major, and they've never been in it. And so they want to do the best they can in the short time they have in the infantry. And so I try to kind of, you know, I try to relate to people in that way, but every now and then I got to stick my foot down and I got to be like, oh, fuck no. When I start seeing you possibly costing a life, that's where I kind of draw the line. Same thing I do with lieutenants, you know, because they come out of IOC and they're fun, you know, and you let them screw up to a certain extent, but I won't let them kill one of my kids.
Yeah.
Right.
When it comes to that. So you have to deal with it. And the best ones of what you're kind of like leading to that did it were the ones that came in and they would listen. They would sit down with their company gunnies, their platoon sergeants, and they would listen. And they would be like, and then they would, you know, I had some great friends on that side of the house. And they would say, what do you need from me? And I would tell them and they would do it. And it was fantastic. But when you have somebody that comes in and they feel like they have to put up a false front because they have to have an image that they are the super warrior of the world and they're really not, you kind of have to learn to manage that. And it's like I never wanted to butt heads all the time, but I'm not going to get steamrolled either, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So,
right, and it had to be, you know, and from their position, it had to be scary. You're coming into a civilized world to a bunch of freaking barbarians. So yeah, it's exactly, and two, they say, I don't know if the Marine Corps does this, but it's that, you know, in biology and anything, it's that pull, that stress, that pull, that stressor that makes you grow better. So diversity, they say, causes better growth, but I think that's very general and they haven't perfected that yet. I mean, I don't know if it causes, I don't know if you feel like dealing with those people cause you to grow better, be better as a human, or do you think it is like a throbbing, you know, detrimental? Was it detrimental?
well, anytime I get to deal with somebody that's the polar opposite of me, I personally think I grow. I learn. Some people don't, as we see in today's environment in America. Some people just can't handle it. I personally think I grow. And that's where, like, me as making my career in the Marine Corps, I believe I was never afraid of taking that challenge up. I was never the biggest. I was never the strongest. I was never the best at best. I admit it with everything. I loved what I did in the Marine Corps, but I know I was never the best. But I had one of my buddies who was probably one of the best infantrymen I've ever met in my life. He was a sniper when he went to units. This was back in the 80s and 90s. Like, his file went right to the battalion commander. Nobody got to see his SRB. But he couldn't get promoted over staff sergeant, and he was pissed. He was a 300 PFTer, expert rifle, all this kind of stuff. But I'm like, and I tried to explain to him because he's like, I'm 5 times better. I'm like, yeah, I know you're a lot better than me on certain things. But I go, as a staff sergeant in the Marine Corps, you're doing exactly what the Marine Corps needs you to do and paying for it. If they want you to go out and do more things and grow to be a gunny, first sergeant, master sergeant, sergeant major, master gunny, you've got to expand your horizon so the Marine Corps can put you wherever they need, and you're multifaceted for the Marine Corps, and you've grown as a whole in the Marine Corps, and you've stretched yourself and made yourself uncomfortable instead of just staying right here in an infantry unit.
Yeah.
And some people can't understand that because, like, genuinely, you don't really need to go past a gunny, to tell you the honest truth, if you never really go out. Because if they promoted you to first sergeant and you've been in the infantry and you've never done a B billet and you're going to go to a winger, you're not going to know how to relate to the air wing the same way as they don't know how to relate to an infantry unit when they come to us. Because it's a whole different world there. And those guys that I've seen it since I worked down there, those dudes work like grunts. Some of the aviation mechanics, they work their asses off. I mean, it's impressive what they do.
Oh yeah, I hear 14-hour workdays are standard especially when they're deployed. I mean, they're it. That's it. That's all we got. So
And,
I mean,
and I kind of describe it as they're job related, we're discipline related, in the long haul of it.
Well, it's a lot of responsibility to, you have a whole air crew basically relying on you. You miss one nut, one bolt, that's,
yeah, it's not the saw.
a dozen families that, are going to be getting that knock on
Exactly.
the door. So what rank were you during when OIF 1 kicked off?
I was a staff sergeant. I was a staff sergeant stuck in Okinawa when OIF shot off.
And then how, like, were you there? Were you boots on ground for the invasion?
Nope.
No. When was your first time back or to the Middle East?
You want to know the honest truth? But I went with you guys.
Okay.
So you got pimped out way before, but then kind of like we missed. My biggest regret is missing Afghanistan. Like, because I signed up for Marine Corps infantry because that's what I wanted, but we missed it. So.
No, and I understand that. I mean, like for me, it's a whole level of missing that kind of stuff. I mean, and here's the part that, like, with my regrets on it. You sit here, like, I was on Okinawa for a year. We were the unit that was stuck in Okinawa 2-4. So we trained the hell out of those guys. I mean, fantastic training. We were going into the Philippines until Donnie Rumsfeld decided to say we were going to the Philippines, and they pulled us out quickly. Like, we already had people on the ground, and 2-4 was going in for, Muslim extremists in the Philippines. Then he opens his mouth in a press conference, and we ended up turning around when OIF-1 was going on, because that's against the Filipino Constitution. And so I came back, and I'd honestly planned on retiring back in the Chicago area. So we'd finished that deployment. I got to see everybody. I thought it was like OIF-1. 100 hours, it's done, whatever, boom. And so I come back, and all my boys are there. Like, I got orders to go back on recruiting duty for a second time because I was going to get retired to Chicago. I'm like, hey, you know what? I'll go back. I'll go to Chicago. I'll retire from the Marine Corps there after 20, and I'll live a life and walk off into the sunset. Then I was out on recruiting, and 2-4 got selected to go to Ramadi. So all those kids I trained are still to this day from the battalion of the most casualties in Iraq. The entire OIF, 2-4, 36 killed and 250 wounded, 35 Marines and 1 corpsman. The unit that I had just finished training that went there. So I ate that one hard. I mean, I even remember one of my friends was a platoon commander from Illinois and had dinner with me when he came home before they were going on deployment. He's like, all we're going to be doing is handing out soccer balls.
Yeah.
And one fateful day on April 6th, there was a U-shaped ambush that hit Echo Company, and 13 Marines got wiped out. So, they engaged in some hostilities, and, I love you guys, but those guys have always been special to me.
Yeah.
Because I like how you feel, Joey, with that. I feel the same way when 2-4 left.
Yeah.
It was like, son of a bitch. I was so guilty that I didn't go with them. But I'd already done my 2 deployments. I'd been there over 4 years. I figured nothing was going to happen, and then all hell broke loose. And it was like, son of a bitch. So that was like that was a heavy burden for me to freaking kind of hold on there. And then even when I was on recruiting duty, I recruited a kid that graduated from Wheaton North in June, and I buried him in November after Fallujah. And so you're seeing that coming through, and all I was trying to do was to get back to the infantry again so I could deploy.
Mm-hmm.
The whole time. So I had to go back in recruiting, but you can't be unsuccessful because I wouldn't have been able to finish my career. I still got to do my mission. But that was honestly harder than combat, was that second tour on recruiting duty that I did. That was a son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Just because all your friends are deployed, I was losing friends right and left. At that time, it was still hot and heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am sitting in Chicago going, what the fuck? But then I'm sitting here trying to say, I still was able to have time with my friends and my family where my friends weren't. So I was trying to look at the positive of me not being over there, but it's hard. People don't understand that about us. Like, why do you want to be there? Because those are my boys. Those are my brothers.
Yeah.
That's why I want, but you could get killed. I'm like, everybody dies.
Yeah.
Everybody in this world is going to die. I hate to tell it, nobody gets out of here.
Mm-hmm. But do you live? But do you live?
Exactly. Very few people live.
I agree.
Very few people live. And so that was the hard one on me because I left recruiting and I went to 1-9 thinking I was going to deploy. I stood them up. I got ready to go. And then I got promoted to Master Sergeant. And so they wouldn't let me stay in 1-9 because I was an H&S company gunny. So I was like, shit.
Yeah.
They got me to 140, you guys. But then that unit of 1-9 had Corporal Kessler, and I can't remember the kid from 1-8 that stopped the vehicle from killing hundreds of Marines. They lost their lives. He was one of my comm Marines when I was a company gunny. So here I am having guilt of them. My admin chief, freaking that I had mentored for a while, got blown up. And one of my greatest compliments, and I'll tell you, medals, whatever, fuck them. I don't give a shit. I'll tell you flat out, there's a meritorious service medal I never got, and I'm like sitting on these fuckers, but I don't really care because you guys were like what I cared about. And freaking, he told me, he goes, I got hit, they blew up my Humvee, it flipped over, and it's on fire. And he goes, I was sitting there, and I was like dazed. He goes, all I heard was your motherfucking voice going, get the fuck up, and just yelling at me. And he goes, that got me out of the Humvee. He goes, you were such an asshole that I still heard your voice. And I was like, very well, because the reason I knew that is because we transitioned with 1-9 when we were coming in with 1-4, and I saw them when we first got into Kuwait because they were coming out.
Yeah.
Okay. So, fuck, what was I gonna say? So you come to us and you weren't there when I got there in January of 08. When did you get there? Or Joey, we got there in January of 08.
January of 08.
We were in
March. I would have to look. I think it was like March.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That's kind of when the platoon sergeants from the previous one they were leaving, and the newer ones who were coming in. There was a lot of changes in those couple months.
That's normal. I mean, when you've been in the Marine Corps long enough, you know it. Because one of my guys, freaking, I think he was a staff sergeant, and then Bamba was in 1-4. He was one of my privates at 2-4.
So, I get what you're saying about, basically it seems like when you leave something, then that unit goes and they get, it's almost like, damn, you missed it, right. You're one step away. And I relate to that because, when I got out in 11 and a bunch of our peers had re-enlisted and they kind of scattered. And that's when a lot of the big surge in Afghanistan was like, Wren was there. Waywood went.
Waywood.
A bunch of different guys, and it's like
Rankle got killed, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, Rankle died like a month
on our deployment.
Yeah, on our second deployment, a month later, because he
died in Afghanistan.
Yeah, he crossed the 3-1.
Yeah.
We left in May, so he died that June.
Yeah, that one kind of hit me hard because I hadn't really heard about it until all of a sudden I was doing his WOD at CrossFit.
Yeah.
It kind of hit me hard. I was like, holy shit.
Oh, yeah.
He was a good kid. I love that kid. I still remember him.
Yeah, I found out because I saw Solo had printed something up and put it on one of the berthing doors, and I thought it was a joke at first. I was like, it's not funny. And then, was it Cat 1 confirmed it. They're like, yeah, he got hit. And it was like, fuck, man. Like, he was my section leader for a bit. And, he was snipers when on our first deployment. They were tying QRF, so we saw them a few times.
No, yeah. Rankle was good. He was a good Marine, good person. He was good to go. But you never know when your time comes. I mean, I lost a kid, Danny Dupree, Staff Sergeant Danny Dupree, he was a great Marine in 1-9, one of the units I left. And that guy, from what I was told from one of the other Marines, they were sitting outside in the fob smoking a cigarette, and a stray round hit him right in the top of the head, and he just dropped in the middle of a group. So
you're
time.
Yeah. And like, it's crazy because all my people from my hometown that joined the Marine Corps were Pogues. Didn't care, didn't want to go to combat exactly. Want to be a Marine because we're from Missouri. We got to be hard, okay? But they didn't want to go to the combat zones. That's not, and I signed up for Marine Corps infantry. We don't go to combat. And, losing Rankle was like, because me and Rankle, I mean, we played together, like football, stuff like that, but we didn't have a good last conversation because I was being a kind of a shitbag because I was being a child. I was taking things like a child, and we didn't have a good conversation. And I was like, I'll show you when we get to combat. That's what my whole thing is. You'll see, motherfucker. And that's what I was thinking. I'm not. And then that sucked. That was shitty. But
well, you can't let that kind of grind on you because shit happens.
Yeah.
That's why even like with my kids, with my wife, with my parents, because I was a shithead kid. But even nowadays with my parents and stuff like that, the last thing I ever tell them if we have a bad conversation, whatever, is I love you, because you never know when something's going to happen. I don't want the last thing I ever say to one of my family members, like something that, like with you right now, that's the last thing. So that's one positive that's come out of losing so many people that I knew is I never let loose ends kind of lie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I kind of try to freaking make sure at the end of the day, it is what it is. Try to be the best person you can be and be kind to as many people as you can.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings up, one of the points was how, as you climb the rank ladder, and the chain of command, what is it like dealing with the loss, whether it's an injury or, where somebody becomes combat ineffective, or it is, a death where they're training or combat? Because, I only saw it from, the Lance Corporal perspective. I didn't, I never ordered somebody into combat. I never ordered, I wasn't making the movements and stuff. I was doing the movements. So what is that like?
For me, it's anger in myself, because I always go back wondering if I trained them good enough. And that's where it is for me, because I understand that people die in combat. That's what we were put on this world to do when you join Marine Corps Infantry, is go to combat.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But you always sit there trying to figure out what I could have done better to make it so I could have minimized somebody getting killed. How could I have trained somebody better? What could I have done? It's the same thing as I used to hate the V sweeps, because we used to lose Marines on V sweeps because they'd hit a mine. And I'm like, these things are bullshit. So me and some other guys, we'd always be trying to figure out a better way so we didn't have to lose a goddamn Marine. And so that's where it kind of hits me hard, is like, what could I have done better to train my Marines to do it? I even remember when I was in 2-4, wives and stuff would call, wondering when their husbands are coming home. And I'd be like, when I fucking release them, I go, if you want me to goddamn bag them, I'll send them home every day at 1 o'clock. But I was harsh. I used to tell my Marines, flat out when I was younger, I go, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care. I would rather you hate me until you're 100 years old and love me and I have to bury you at 20, because I didn't teach you what I needed to teach you. And like I said, I wasn't the biggest, baddest, smartest, toughest, whatever, but I always had a drive to try to train my Marines better. I was very effective at training Marines. Probably more than I was as an individual Marine. I was better at training them. And I would always try to find ways to make it better. I was sitting with my machine gunners, and I was a machine gun section leader. The very first class I gave, because all you guys think you fucking know everything when you come out of SOI. And the first thing I would do is do a class with machine guns on defilade fire. And it was 8 hours a day for 2 days. And at the end of the day, I would tell my machine gunners, now do you realize you don't know shit? And they would look at me like, holy cow. And at 29 Palms at the time, I was able to take them out into the desert, and we were actually able to do defilade fire using a forward observer with Mark 19s and M60s at the time, trying to train them to do that. And then I would also train them, we'd sit there with laser pointers in the end of the 60s. They would sit there for hours, 2 up, 2 down, 2 up, 2 down. So they knew exactly how far their hands had to move, going up and down and right and left and everything else. And when we'd be running range 400, I had an old crusty bastard by the name of Gunnar Galinas. I mean, this dude was the epitome of freaking just leather. And he would teach us things, like he would teach me and like inspired me. He's one of the reasons I wanted to be a gunner, because he was our battalion gunner. But sitting on Machine Gun Hill, do you guys ever go on Machine Gun Hill 400, 29 palms?
No, because we were mounted on the trucks.
Yeah, so you guys would be off to the right. But I'd be sitting on Machine Gun Hill, and Gunnar Galinas taught me. I was one of the only people that I know that was able to do this. I would be sitting at the edge of my far left machine gun like this, and my troops would be here, and the rounds would be hitting here 1,500 meters down on those bunkers, and I'd be like, two right, two right, two right. And the 11s would be telling me like, holy shit. Because if my guys would have gone left, I would have killed one of my guys.
Yeah.
But that's how regimented I was training them. But then I learned stuff from Gunnar Galinas, like the mortars were trying to set shit up. They couldn't get their aiming stakes in, and he took his fucking K-bar and slung it into the dirt. There's your goddamn aiming stick. Now get the mortar running. And that fucker was straight on. I mean, he did a lot of tours in Vietnam, and he was a little bit freaking out there, but smart as hell. You know? but I mean, those are great guys to learn from because they were very unconventional. Like he set off a small with a wrapper from a piece of Big Red because he hit it on the back of the small and it made an electrical spark, and boom, there it went. So they're like, hang fire, they're doing it. He's like, hang on real quick. And he got a piece of Big Red in his mouth and went, and that sucker launched.
Yeah. Well, so that goes back to the whole, it takes that pull to make you grow. And that pull is their assholes. You know what I mean? It's their, we get in a confusing time where we throw the word hazing out. There's a fine line between somebody being a piece of shit and making the Marines do something for their own personal gain. But if an individual, even though it may be misguided, you know, a little off because you don't have a lot of school in the Marine Corps, especially as senior lance corporal, if the individual is training their Marines based off their experience to try to keep their Marines alive, that is not hazing. That stressor that you need to get over. And after you finally get over your feelings, you grow and start seeing your whole mind just expands. You know, and that's physical. Like you actually physically are getting more like electric activity in your brain, and different parts of your brain are activated. And so that's what I thought was really awesome about the Marine Corps is as a boot, you like, this sucks. It's terrible, you know, but then you get in the country and then you're just doing your job like it's nothing. And then the country was like, you're at peace, you know, for us anyway.
No, and I get it. I mean, but the one problem with hazing is we let it get way too out of hand in the mid-90s. Way too out of hand. When you had the 8th and I that was hitting on the NBC News, you know, and some of the stuff they were doing. The blood pinning, then when they released that video, that one didn't upset me because that's like a time-honored tradition.
Yeah.
But a lot of this stuff hit in the 90s, like Dateline would bring it out, and I was like, oh, shit. I mean, once again, my own mother calls me up yelling at me for beating up Marines. You know, I wasn't doing it, but there was effective ways to do it. Like some of the things, like one of the times when Lance Corporal Henderson decided to be the senior Lance Corporal and make my boot field day in my freaking room, and then me and my other roommate went out and got hammered and came back passed out in our room and trashed it. And Gunny Hittner, who was the living, breathing reincarnation of Gunny Highway from Heartbreaker Edge, I'm not even kidding you. I could go on a whole story on Gunny Hittner. Comes into my room, and we had trashed it, and we're passed out on our racks. And he walked down to my squad leader, Corporal Yartz, pulled him literally off the shitter, down to my room with his pants still around his ankle, screaming at me about my BQ room being trashed, and here I am hammered. So what happens to Lance Corporal Henderson? Put on all your gear, and I was doing what they call bang drills for almost 2 days straight. Basically, after running all my gear, and they'd yell bang, and I'd have to hit the ground, get back and start running. They'd yell incoming. I'd have to hit the ground and low crawl to a bush. And then if you've ever been to Lejeune, they've got sidewalks everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
My roommate had to do sidewalk appreciation, so he'd have to go there and do 10 push-ups.
Sidewalk.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to hit my kids anymore, though. I've actually just – I don't ever hit my kids, but, you know.
No, I know what you mean. But the learning lesson I got from that was I never drank during the week again. During the work week, I never drank for my entire career.
It's kind of like, you know, you're going to suffer now so you can be comfortable later instead of being comfortable now and suffering later.
Well, it's a small thing. I mean, like when I was at 2-4, I was known for my I would sneak around on my during the middle of the night as a platoon sergeant. I used to have this big-ass thick red marker. And if I caught you sleeping, I would put a big red mark across your neck. And so what's, people, the command started asking how that fucking happened. Non-punitive letter of, reprimand later, I stopped doing it because it wasn't worth my career. But my Marines learned not to fall asleep on post.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
On post, and it was hazy, and I singled them out. I mean, it was hot in the 90s. You have no clue how hot it was in the 90s.
But oh, never mind. Yeah, I don't think that's hazing. I wouldn't think that's hazing.
It was very sensitive at that time. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm still kind of butthurt about Leon. To this day, I'm butthurt about Leon. To this day. What happened to him was unjust. It was bullshit. If they were going to fucking kick him out, they should have done it right then and there and not made him deploy with that whole group and then nail him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My opinion.
No, they did. They did something similar to Smith. I remember. I don't know. I didn't know him much. I know Smith was with me because I transferred platoons after Iraq. He's clean. We talked about the whole way. We both had kids. We're like, we're going to clean up. He was like, I'm cleaning up my life. I'm be a good Marine. And then he gets to his AA class and he graduates his AA class and like, well, you can't graduate. He's like, why? Because you popped for a piss test. It's like, yeah, that was before the deployment. And then they called the regimental commander and then hit him again. Double jeopardy. Same crime.
He was my when I was in PSD in Iraq. He was our lead gunner and he was great. He called everything. He put the truck exactly where it needed to go. He would cover your ass on like even just we would just stop for a second, dismounts would get out. He would be, by the book and everything. And then as we get back and they just nail him.
Yeah. Hey, Smith, hit me up if you ever get a hold of this post, buddy. I'm waiting for you.
But that's the Marine Corps. You got to remember, you got some people, we're supposed to be these polished gentlemen at all times. And then all of a sudden they're going to put us in combat and we're supposed to be barbarian Vikings killing everybody. It's a very hard standard to live up to when it comes down to it. And that's what a lot of people don't get. I had a kid at 1-7 and he had Gulf War, Somalia with me. I loved the kid. Absolutely loved him. I couldn't keep a rank on his shoulder to save his freaking life. He was about 4 feet tall and wiry, and he would scrap with anybody. I would take him to combat tomorrow in that one. I still remember he was a PFC and he had I think he had 5 rows. And he's in the chow hall. It is Charlie's and this gunny asked him, and I was sitting in the chow hall and luckily heard it. Hey, where'd you get all those ribbons, Marine? He goes, at the PX. And the gunny starts going off on him. And I had to go down there, whoa. I'm like, dude, what do you, he goes, well, I bought him there. He asked where I got him. He goes, well, he starts going, he goes, he was in like the Gulf before like the Gulf War. Then he was in the Gulf War. He was in Somalia. He did a couple other joint ops. He was stacked. I had another dude, if you ever read the book Making the Corps by Thomas Ricks.
Man, write that one down. And that other book that I'll get back to you on that one.
Yeah. If you read that one, the entire first chapter is written about one of my other favorite Marines, Armando Cordova. And God loved that dude. Once again, I would take him into combat any day of the week and twice on Sunday. But I couldn't keep him out of fighting. But that's what you want in the Marine Corps. It's just hard when you kind of do both things.
Yeah.
And I tried to explain it to one of my friend's kids he's in boot camp right now. He wanted to go infantry. And I'm like, so he kept asking me about infantry. I've known the kid since he was 6. And I'm like, you glamorize it too much. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, look, I go, all the infantry is killing. You train to kill, you learn to kill, you think about killing. Even when you're off work, you're trying to forget about killing, but all you can think about is killing. And then I'm supposed to go and have Thanksgiving dinner with a bunch of peace-loving people. And here I am thinking about, all right, if shit goes wrong, how am I getting out of this room and who am I going to stick? And that's how I
That's exactly right. I'm so sorry. Thank you for having the balls to say that, though.
Well, but people can't fathom that. Whenever I walk into a restaurant, a bar, whatever, the first thing I do when I sit down is my wife knows I've got to pick the seat that I'm going to sit in. I look at everybody in there. In my head, I honestly have a plan on if I have to kill somebody, who I'm killing first, and how I'm getting my family out of there. And it's not that I'm going to act on it. It's not that I'm going to do it. That's just how I'm trained.
Well, it's the one time you don't do it is when the shit pops off, and then you beat yourself up the rest of your life because you didn't do it that one time.
Exactly. I'll walk away from any scrap, any fight, anything. I don't want to fight somebody. Like somebody asked me one time, you know, I'm not getting into the whole situation of what happened. Why didn't you hit that dude? I'm like, look, I go, he could have kicked my ass. I could have kicked his ass, whatever. I go, but I'm not going to fight a dude. He's like, what do you mean? He goes, I don't think about fighting somebody. I'm going to kill him. The only thing I think about if I get into a fisticuff conflict with you is I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, not punch you in the face.
I don't want to send you to the hospital. I want to send you to the grave.
Yeah.
And,
punch you in the face.
You know, and that's a hard mindset to let go of. You know, if I want to just fight somebody, I'll get into an octagon or I'll get into a boxing ring or whatever. But if you want to literally cross horns with me in the streets, if I can pick up a shard of glass and stick it through your rib cage, I'm going to do it. And it's a hard thing when you're trying to live inside of a community now. You know, it was really hard for me when I retired. People would see me lose my temper. And you guys would hear me bark and stuff like that when I was, you know, AKA Master Sergeant Henderson, or I like Top H. I'll always be Top H to me.
Top H. I remember the one, I don't know if you devil dogged anybody, but in Iraq, I had never seen you devil dog anybody in my life, but then I didn't have an A driver, and I did do something stupid because, you know, I was kind of a dummy. But I remember you grabbed me and whispered sweet nothings in my ear. I'm like,
well, that's how I was.
Yeah, the real UK, all these tales about you being a dick, I never saw it in 1-4, but the day I was like, I was living.
But
well, we talked earlier, Caldwell, about, I think it was on another I think it was with Orange, about when Kazi didn't wake up and
shit
to cook breakfast. That was
That's
the first and only time I ever heard you actually scream at somebody, and I was like, holy shit.
When I was younger, I screamed a lot more. I figured as a master sergeant, I didn't need to, and that's what I tried to explain to the powers that be that wanted the first sergeants to bark all the time. Mm-hmm. I'm like, if I got to bark, who the fuck are the corporals doing their jobs? You know, he finally saw me. No kidding. He gave me one of his coins right when I can't remember the name of the damn camp we used to go back to because I didn't never go there.
Bahria?
Huh?
Bahria?
There you go. I can't never remember the name. I remember Route Iron. I remember Black Hawk, whatever. But freaking, he saw me walk up and correct Marines, and I did what I did to you, Caldwell. I walked up to their ear, and you need to unfuck yourself because what do I get out of embarrassing you?
Nothing. It just as your master sergeant, it hurt me way worse for you to tell me I was fucked up, that I was actually it was like after the deployment too, and I'd already did a job. I've already did what I thought was a pretty good job, and then I did something stupid, and then there it was. It's like you can't let your guard down ever, because after the deployment you want to let your guard down, and that's exactly what I did, and there you were.
But that's my job to do it, but I have to have a certain way of doing it because. Like I was trying to explain to certain people in the powers that be that wanted me to be a company gunny, which I wasn't. I was an operations chief. I used to say, you have gunny platoon sergeants that's their job. Well, they're not ready. I'm like, well, that's your fucking job to train them. Simple as that. The best units I've ever seen are the ones that run well when that person left because they were trained so well. And so, like when I was a corporal sergeant, I mean, like people who know me back in those days are like, wow, you're a lot less intense now. And I am. I mean, I'm 50, but I grew to a point to where I found out it's a little bit more intimidating for me to walk up to you and quietly tell you in your ear what's going on than just boom.
Yeah. And intimidating, and it's like internally embarrassing. I don't know how to explain that. Totally. It's like, it's just like, you know, you're like a lot of people's out on the infantry because I didn't sign up to, I mean, yeah, I like the regs. It was great. But in garrison on combat, like, you know, all that stupid reg shit they gave us, and then you didn't, you walk with your gunny sleeves and your medium regs. I'm like, yeah, see, it's combat. And then you're coming up to me, devil dog, me, I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah, I mean.
Hell no. I got to do better.
If I speak to you, you listen. If I yell at you, you go. And it just, you know, there's a point in time, like when I used to yell the most, and don't talk to my kids because they still think I yell, but it's okay. But when I used to yell the most was when it was live fire. Because there is no time for discussion.
Yeah.
You need to do what I tell you to do when I tell you to do it immediately. But other than that, we can talk it out. You know what I mean? But if you cross me, I swear to God, if you cross me when I'm on a live fire, I would hit you in your helmet with my buttstock when I was a sergeant. And I've done it several times.
Message to Garcia.
Huh?
Message to Garcia.
Did that happen? I can't remember reading that damn thing.
Instant willingness, obedience to orders.
Yeah, and that's the number one time I needed it was in live fire and in combat. Other than that, in training, if you wanted to come have a conversation with me, you'd be like, well, why the hell are we doing this? I would explain it to you. You know, sometimes it just goes, hey, we just got to fucking get it done. But other times it's like, I've got to have a conversation with you so we can learn it. Because if I teach you in your head and then you mimic it, then we can go. Because what I wanted, when I trained people, what I wanted was a free-thinking Marine out there able to make a decision at a second's notice on his OODA loop, his little Boyd cycle, and move back and forth and fire and maneuver with people. So I could have one 4-man team or even a 2-man team firing and moving on top of the enemy that I don't have to worry about. And then as a platoon sergeant, I can be calling in for fire or whatever else I had to do. Yeah. So it's just the way I trained. I mean, like I said, it's like I always tried to make sure I was effective in my communication. That's where, honestly, I think recruiting was better than being a drill instructor, because I learned how to, instead of bending you to my mold, I was able to take your strengths. Like you guys, I didn't have as much interaction with as I did when I was a staff sergeant and sergeant, but I would try to take those personalities and I would work within what I knew I had. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would try to get the best I could out of that person. Because not everybody can be, Esquivel, or not everybody can be, oh my God, man, I can't remember his name.
Sarney.
Huh?
There's Stash Sarney, and then that was
Williams. I still
Williams.
Him, but
yeah.
The Silver Star Gunny. Oh Lord, he's about
Homer. Gunny Homer.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to deal with all these different personalities, and the problem with a lot of people in the Marine Corps, especially, is they want everybody to do what they say, how they say it, when they say it, and everybody's different.
Yeah.
Everybody's different. Like I could come up to you and be like whisper in your ear and you're corrected, and another dude I can whisper in your ear, like, that pussy, and then I got to bark on him. Mm-hmm. And so you got to learn your Marines, and it's the same thing that I learned out here in business. You know what I mean? I try to pertain those things because I can't bend you to my will by intimidation. So
right. I'm going into school teaching, and raising children is I've drastically changed my tactics over the last 10 years, especially getting education.
Dude, being a parent is much more difficult than being a freaking platoon sergeant.
Sometimes you can't, like, if they don't actually get the point, you literally got to change, or you're going to damage them, and you got to change fast.
Well, you can't paper fuck your kid until it gets changed to another family. It doesn't work that way.
Oh yeah,
you can't do that. Child Protective Services, but
yeah,
minors. But no, I mean, but that's how I was. It was funny because that's how I was with my kids. Because my daughter, I used to bark at her all the time, and she'd give it right back at me. You know what I mean? And my son was different. He would absorb it differently, but he would internalize. So I'd have to go back to and be like, hey, I'm sorry. I know you're not one of my Marines.
My poor eldest son, who is with the Marines, is definitely raised different from my youngest two, and I just had to go back to him tonight and be like, I know I could have caught up better, but you gotta follow instructions. It says instructions. I would have handled this situation differently, and we're working on that. So good luck I think he's gonna be okay, but
no, well, but I once again I try to sit down with my kids and try to explain it to them, and I go, there's a certain reason I am the way I am. I've seen far too many kids die. I told my son this, because he'll be 19 in November. I go, I buried kids your age from doing dumbass shit. And I go, so yes, I get anxiety on it. I get a lot of things on it. I apologize, but I'm just trying to make sure that you're safe and you're making a smart decision. Yeah. And I go back to him, but there's reasons I have that anxiety. There's reasons I freaking almost swerved the car off the road because I saw a bag on the side of the road. Yep.
God.
There's reasons that, I bow up sometimes. Just there just is. I go to count. I don't like. I don't tell like taking medications, I told you earlier, but I go to counseling for, PTSD, anger management, stuff like that to talk it out, because there's things that I can talk to a counselor about, and trust me, my counselor looks at me and her eyes get all big, but my family will never know.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so it's like, so now when I started doing counseling and recognizing that I had issues, my relationship with my family and with my children was much better. Because it took me understanding that, hey, I've got a problem. And I need to seek help for that problem. So I wanted to do it through counseling. And if I needed medication, I would have gone with the medication. And that's where a lot of Marines don't really kind of know how to ask for help. They kind of try to internalize it. I'm a badass. I'm a Marine. I can suck it up. I had one of my good friends from 1-9 was a sergeant major and killed himself while he was still on active duty. And then I had another sergeant major that killed himself that I'd known for years. So it's not just a young junior Marine problem. It's in the senior Marine, senior Army, everything problem.
Yeah. We lost our staff sergeant A to he took his own life. That blew me away, man. That blew me away. He was always driving a nice vehicle. I mean, he seemed like he really had it together, and then I spent a lot of time with that guy. But
when you get out, it's different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember just because he did some, there was this, it was our second deployment was a mess. And as an NCO, I failed to see that this dude had gone through a jillion freaking deployments, and he was just trying to actually give me words of encouragement, and it came out wrong, and I did that. And then after he took his life, it all just came crashing in my head, and I started, but it's crazy. It's crazy to know even you're going through exactly what we go through, swerving at the bag. I don't know how many times with my wife. It's coming handy a couple times. There's like somebody drops the couch, and then when I see the couch, I'm like, whoa, whoa. It comes in handy. But other times it's just like, oh, I almost killed my damn family.
But it's a total mindset of what people can't understand, and it's a mindset that even our first responders have that people don't understand. When it comes down to it, you have to deal, and I hate to say it, like you have to deal with people who literally, in a lot of ways, mentality-wise, are not human. But you grew up in most people grow up in an environment where there's humanity, there's caring. You might not have grown up in the best setting, but you're literally dealing with people overseas that since the time they were freaking able to walk, they were taught to kill. They were taught to hate us. They have no problem with freaking all the stuff they have to do. Yeah. Where coming from America, I call it the land of the bubble, even though our bubble is a little bit bursting. We don't see that on a daily basis. And you're dealing with people and everybody's like, well, they hate it. I'm like, yeah, I go, maybe a Tomahawk missile killed half of his family that we sent. So it doesn't excuse their action, but it helps you kind of understand it. It's the same way as even in southern Mexico now, they're training kids young to be able to behead people and carve people up and chop them up because the cartels need them to do certain things. What they're doing in the madrasas, there's certain people that are out there, and it sucks. And we have to go face to face with them.
Yeah.
When you look into somebody else's eyes before you pop them, and you can literally see that they have there's no remorse in their eyes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where when we do it, there's a little bit of a remorse with everybody minus a couple that I know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Then there's none.
Yeah.
There's zero.
No. Yeah. The lady who took out the children's hospital had. Right.
I have a theory about that though, from intel that we found that she was mentally handicapped, and they convinced her to do it.
Exactly.
So I wasn't mad at her. I was mad at the guys who orchestrated it. It was you took advantage of her basically weakness and got her to do your bullshit bidding.
And that happens more times than not.
Mm. And yeah, they don't care. They just and to the women who want to say we shouldn't be over there, it's like just go look over there. Just literally just go just seriously go look and give somebody your opinion over there and see what happens.
No, and you're right. I mean, I wrote, I got it somewhere on my Facebook page. I wrote a letter to all my, to like my peers, my high schoolers and stuff like that I grew up with about you guys before we left Iraq on my last deployment. And I would see you guys on your time off going down to that school that was down from us and setting up patrols to make sure kids made it to school and making sure they felt safe in those neighborhoods. I go, that's what America is all about, bringing to foreign countries. Yeah, did we absolutely demolish the place and every military-age male around Fallujah? Yeah, we killed them. But freaking, we're still trying to rebuild them, and we still had the humanity to try to defend those people, to give them a chance in life where other people don't. All the freaking foreign fighters that are coming in, they can give two shits about those people.
Yeah.
They're pawns to them. They're freaking human shields to them. And they use them as human shields because they know we look at them as human beings. And when we have to deal with that on a regular basis, whether it was they do the same thing in Central America. They did the same thing in Somalia. They used to send the kids to us. They'd send the kids at us with freaking, mortar rounds, because they know that the kids can get close to us.
Yeah.
And as Americans, we do it. But then you have to deal with that when you go by. Like when you see a kid holding a 155 round that all of a sudden turns into a hamburger, for us, it kind of hits you pretty hard. For them, they're like, next. And that's just how they are.
Yeah.
And so when you come back from that, and now here I am sitting out at a nice dinner and everything's quiet, and I'm sitting here just like, I never feel like I fit in. Like legit. I never feel like I fit in anywhere. And so that's the whole thing when you're not around you. I mean, like I'm used to being able to shoot my mouth off, talk with my boys, chest bump, whatever. You do that out here, and people are like, the fuck?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a big thing for me was like everywhere I went and worked, I treated everybody like freaking Marines, and still carried work home with me. And they're like, dude, they totally like can ignore their environment. Like I see them out at restaurants or something, and they literally tunnel vision and don't see anything. And I'm just like, I see everything in the restaurant. And my wife says she swears by it. Like, how do you not see this stuff that occurs all around you? Just like, do you not, does this not scare you? It's like, did you see these things or like what this person's wearing? She never notices. And I believe her now. It took me forever to be like, you've got to notice this stuff. But
well, we've talked before about how, we have to get it right every time. Because the one time you miss it, like our consequences was death or being maimed, or worse, the guy next to you getting killed. And these, the regular people, typical people, it's, you get caught sleeping at your desk, you might get yelled at by your boss. If we get, caught sleeping, you get shot in the back of the head. It's really hard to take that mindset and put it away when it's, in your everyday life. Like driving down the road, I think, I remember freaking driving in the Bay Area and there was literally wires going across the road. And I was like, fucking stop. And it was like Bay Area traffic. And my wife's like, what's wrong? I was like, sorry, but I see wires going across the road. I'm getting ready for the flash and the bang. Like it's real.
I agree. One of my buddies out here was driving one time, and there was kids in the crosswalk, but he could make the turn. He hooked the turn when the kids went, and I punched him right across his jaw. He pulls over, and he was pissed. They're like, what'd you do that? I'm like, sorry, David, PTSD, because through Somalia, we'd whip turns and catch the concertina wire and start dragging kids. And that's an ugly sight.
Yeah.
It's one of those that he was even a Marine, but he was, never deployed, never did anything. So he doesn't understand where I'm coming from that in certain times like that. Mm-hmm. And you're right. You're like, people look at you like you're batshit crazy.
Yeah. For me, I got home and it was only 4 years. So I'm picking exactly up right where I left off. And I found all the old homies and had all these habits that literally, and I don't blame them. I'm not mad at them, but dude, it was all cool at first, but then I scared the shit out of him with some of the even we weren't in some heavy combat, but I was just talking about some of just the patrols that happened over there. Not even the ones where the child throws the rock at the rear vehicle and we bust out and get the whole family on the line on Boondock Saints style. I didn't even tell them that one. I told them like the nicer ones, or like maybe the first time I was there, I was like, so what was it? They ask you what was it like? It's like, okay, so I'm over there. The first day I got over there. Is like, well, I told them first day I go up to OP Green. There's like they take me immediately to show me the pile of brains from the dude who offed himself on OP Green. So yeah, that was my first day. They went on a patrol. They were done after the dude's brains. Where I was like, what? You guys gonna let me finish? I mean, it was, because I'm gonna open. I was like, so I see that vets bottle up. I see all this crap. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna tell people because people always ask and want to know, and they don't fucking want to know.
No.
They don't want to know. They don't care. Yeah.
No.
So,
let me eat my sausage. I just don't want to know how it's made.
Yeah.
I won't go kill an animal. It's animal cruelty, but I will eat meat.
Yeah, no shit. I always love that one. If I go hunt something, everybody gets mad at me. I'm like, I didn't know you were a vegetarian. You want somebody else to do your dirty work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. And it is a beautiful thing though when you can get people, because like me and my wife, very opposite political, but she's, and I'm kind of, it's good, but really it's, it's, but I don't know. It's just, it feels really good that you're saying this stuff. Even so, Rosie spit out something. You just spit out something that I have trouble telling people, so that was awesome.
We talked with Rosie kind of, we talked about it here too, was people they don't realize the extent of how violent we're willing to be.
Yeah.
To where if somebody, like you were saying, you don't want to fight, you don't want to send somebody to the hospital, you want to send them to the graveyard. It's not, it's not, oh, we're going to fight, you get knocked down and then I'm going to walk away. It's no, we're going to fight and I'm going to fucking stab you 100 times in the chest to make sure you don't get back up. Because if that one chance that you're still alive, now I have to watch my back the rest of my life. Like it's not.
Yeah.
It's much easier when your enemy's in the ground. You know exactly where he is.
But I don't want people to really forget that second point, the big second point. It's not that we don't want to fucking kill anybody, but it's just that's how we think. But the big second point is this is the only mother trucking country that goes to try to protect people. It's okay. So I watch too much Batman. I want to protect, those innocents over there just as much as whatever. But how we do our ROEs, how they don't do that anywhere else. And so people of America, we might have our issues, but we are by far in my opinion, prove me wrong, somebody, the most compassionate. And comment, please, prove me wrong. I want to see. We're no anger. We can have civilized conversations, okay? We're not going to kill everybody for stating your opinion, but I want to know who's a more compassionate country. What country helps out more people, even though we can't do it. The only reason why we can't help out and have a bigger military force is because people are not willing. And there are so many things wrong in the world. And this is a beautiful country. And whether you like it or not, these people want this country. And there's so many different ways to collapse a country. And there's so many different ways to have war other than just going to fight over there. So, my mission is just like everybody that may see this is, literally tell me what's good about the country. Literally, just seriously take a look around. It's not hard,
So I think we covered a bunch of the stuff that I had planned to talk to you about, but I'm interested in what advice would you give to, a guy that's, getting out in 30 days or a guy that's been out 30 days. Like how would do you have any, words of wisdom that you would want them to live by, or what should they do when they get out so that they don't fall into some of the same traps?
It's different for everybody when you get out from your experiences. My biggest advice when people ask me is network yourself, join an organization, as hokey as it might be, and I might not want to put on your little red hat or whatever else. Find an organization, whether it's the VFW, the Legion, the Marine Corps League, even the doggone Rotary, whatever. Find something, because all of us join the Marine Corps to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. So find something in life that gives you purpose. A lot of the times, a lot of the Marines I know that got into issues, they lost their purpose. So first and foremost is find your purpose in life when you get out. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to have all the jobs done. You don't have to be making $1 million. You don't have to be doing all this kind of stuff. But find something that you're passionate about that's bigger than yourself and help out. It could be as much as helping with like feeding people. I just learned about, even though not from political stuff, I never knew Trump did a thing where it was like farms to families. Somebody join something like that that's bigger than yourself. Join the Gator Navy that's in helping, because that's what we do as Marines. I mean, yeah, we kill people, but we help people. And so find something there, but then take advantage of everything that's out there. That's been the hard part for me, is because I don't like handouts. I'm not the type of person that takes handouts. Mm-hmm. I've got a buddy of mine, and he never deployed once, and the dude gets out and he's 100% disabled. I'm like, listen, I rate that shit. I'm like, fuck you. I go, I did 22 years in the infantry. I go, I'm not. I go, because I had one of my snipers that lost his arm, and it took a fight and a half to get that son of a bitch 100%. And you're like fucking fine, and you got 100%. But anyway, I regress. But get what the help you need. Do your stuff at the VA. If you need counseling, ask it. Nobody will ask you a freaking question about it, and nobody will judge you. You don't even have to tell people you're doing. Just say, hey, I got an appointment. Go do your counselings. Go do whatever you need. Network out with your fellow Marines. I can't always be there, but I still have some of my guys from old units. They find me on Facebook, and all of a sudden I see my messenger start like zinging. And I see it's like umpty frats calling me. I'm like, oh, no shit. Pick up the phone, and we have so many ways to talk to people. If you're having a hard time, if you're trying to find a job, network. I tell people all the time, network with me. I've got a decent network on LinkedIn. If I can try to get you something, I will. I can't do everything. If I can help you rewrite your resume, because the tap and tamp sucks. But reach out to those people that were mentors to you in the Marine Corps or your buddies to try to do that and take advantage of everything you have. The biggest thing I see people do, and I took a lot of shit in the Marine Corps. Like I kid you not. Off and on. I piss a lot of people off, and that's just me. It just is what it is. But I was able to get my degree as an infantryman while I was in the Marine Corps, my master's degree. And everyone's like, I never had time. Well, guess what? When you were fucking partying, I was going to college. You know what I mean? My weekends, especially after I got married, I got to have a future when I get out someday. I got to find, to do that. So take advantage of those things. Use your GI Bill, to set up your education. Or if you want to trade, the VA will help you get a trade when it comes down to it. Work on doing what you want to do when you get out. But the hard thing is you've got to find that one thing that you want to be a part of. You have to, because you can't lose faith in who and what you are. You're a United States Marine, but I see so many people, suffer from depression. You know what I mean? It's like, why the hell did you kill yourself? And I wish I could freaking revive them just so I fucking knew that. Because it pisses me off that they didn't call me. And I can't be everywhere, but I can pick up the phone. I can talk to you for an hour, and we can figure out a plan, and I can get you help to your house to help you out. You
were there when I had a serious fucking freak out. Like, I had a serious freak out. I didn't know what the fuck to do. I don't know. I didn't know how to make it stop. And I knew I wanted, it's calling you to get back into the Marine Corps, but right. I was freaking the fuck out, hating all, because I was at a job that I don't want to mention, but I was making hella money. And I thought making money was what I wanted, and it wasn't what I wanted. I was $100K a year, and that was my first year, and I was freaking the fuck out, man. You picked up, because this company didn't give two shit. They say they do, and they might do things for the community on the back end, but they don't give two shits about whether or not somebody can afford their product or not. They just are trying to get that money, and that's why our country's jacked up. Yeah.
But that's what you have to do. I mean, one of the best things I ever saw was my boys from 2-4. We had a rash of suicides from 2-4. It was horrific for a while. But somebody would make an outburst on freaking Facebook, like a cry for help. And you would see the entire network start going, who's close to this? Who's close to that? And people would get in their cars and drive to the old boy's house. And that's where the brotherhood comes from. Pick up the fucking phone if somebody calls you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes it's just listening.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just listening. You know what I mean? Just to do that, but do that when you're getting out. But the big thing is, I tell everybody, when you're getting out, have a plan. Just don't get the fuck. You have no clue how many times that I heard I'm going to go back to Umpty Frats and make $60,000 a year. I'm going to do this. My Uncle Joe or cousin Bobby or freaking I got a job waiting on me. Whatever. If you saw all my stuff on my first enlistment, it's like Devil Dog is getting out of the Marine Corps and going to college. Every one of my freaking interviews. Have a freaking plan on your way out. Have a plan. Just don't get out and think the world's going to come to you. The world owes you nothing.
Nothing.
To tell you the honest truth, the world doesn't owe you a fucking thing. And our country has not realized that.
Doesn't. Yeah. I mean.
That. Everybody wants something for free.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And it rubs off on you. You get out and you have all these thank you for your service, thank you for your blah, blah. If I just, let's stop thanking us. I mean, thank us for service, whatever. I would say just try hard. Don't thank veterans for.
Joe, you cut out. But Top, on the flip side, what would you offer? Can you guys hear me?
Dude, and he loves to be boisterous and pound his chest and how much of a badass he was. And he was fucking with my boy, and I'm sitting there having a beer with him. I'm like, come on, dude, what the fuck? I'm telling you, how I am with people. And the guy could fucking probably just take me and go, he's a big dude.
Yeah.
And my boy was sitting there just all fucking, I'm like, pull out the picture. He's like, he wouldn't talk. I'm like, pull out the motherfucking picture. He goes, all right. The guy's like, oh, like this, like, how sergeant majors get.
Yeah.
But he still tries to use his rank and stuff. He doesn't with me anymore. And so my boy pulled out the picture and he turned it around like this, and it was him, President Obama, and Dakota Meyer. He kind of goes back like this. He goes, what's that? He goes, I was Dakota Meyer's team leader. Him and Dakota really are at each other's throats, kind of, because he has an issue with Dakota because Dakota wrote a book and he's making money and got famous off of his boys dying.
Yeah.
And my boy was the team leader, so he'll call Dakota up in the middle of the night, pissed drunk, screaming at him. But then, another one of my boys lost his arm in the, in Ramadi in 04. I have people to network you to that might, help you grow your brand on your podcast if I can. I can't promise nothing, but when you guys are looking to schedule, if you need a booker, I might see what I can do about pulling some of them in, because some of them will talk to you. I mean, I've even got one of my guys, he's got a great story, even though I don't hang out with him as much as I want to because I'm always working. But he was a Laotian immigrant from the Vietnam War back in the 70s, joined the Marine Corps, and had a career in the Marine Corps. Of course, PTSD kind of took his career away, but he lives like right around the corner from me.
Yeah.
But great story. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we can even go as far as giving them a deep voice and throwing up the old censor if they want to. Because, I mean, this is kind of like a confessions thing, too. I mean, I don't know, like, whatever they want to use it for, but for me, it's kind of like a confession / it just feels good to be able to talk about it.
And it can be mutually beneficial. I mean, like for you, Nard, are you still involved with the one group you were with?
No, this whole thing, the whole quarantine shit really shut us down. I mean, I still talk to all the guys, but we haven't been doing our normal stuff. Right now, they're building some tiny homes for homeless veterans.
Oh, cool.
Oh, nice.
Like the ones that you could pull behind your truck and park it somewhere. And so I think we're about to finish the first one and start working on the second one. But I got a guy, I'm working on getting a guy that was in Restrepo on here to talk, because I read Sebastian Younger's book War about the Korengal Valley. So like I'll talk to anybody, dude. I like learning from people and their
Yeah.
experiences, and
Yeah. I was
you know, we
reading.
don't have to talk about war. We could just talk
Yeah.
about fuck. I don't care.
No, I'm not going to say you're going to turn into Joe Rogan, but yeah, I love watching that dude shit.
Yeah, he's got some good shit. He does, and that's what it's kind of Joe Rogan inspired.
Well, some of them are. I mean, like even my Instagram page. I mean, I didn't know how to monetize it because my Instagram voice of the grunt. It's probably before your time, but there was a guy by the name of Colonel Hackworth.
Uh-huh.
Have you guys ever heard
I've
of
heard
him?
of
No.
I've heard of Colonel Hackworth, not the Hackworth in our unit, but I have heard of Colonel Hackworth. What was that?
You ever see Apocalypse Now?
Of
Yeah.
course.
Okay. Marlon Brando's character was loosely based on him.
Okay.
Okay. Basically, he was like super soldier. He was the most decorated living American until the time of his death a few years ago. And he has a book called About Face that I just loved. And it basically talked about the politicalization of the military and how he couldn't stand it anymore. And he came out on a CBS show called Issues and Answers in the middle of the Vietnam War, coming out against the Vietnam War. And basically went into self-exile into Australia afterward. And then his daughter reconnected with him, and he wrote the book About Face. But he used to write a weekly newsletter in Newsweek magazine before it went totally tank left, called Voice of the Grunt. And so he would bring up issues in the infantry on how the military is being used for the wrong purposes. And I was going to try to like rally off of that when I left the freaking Marine Corps and try to kind of make that my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kids, college, work, not finding a way to make money out of it. Your wife needs to have freaking, income coming in. So you got responsibilities, so you can't always do that. But I mean, but what you guys are doing is important. Keep talking to people because that's half the way. That's half the battle on freaking working on. Well, I'll say everything. Are you recording now, Nard?
Yeah. You want me to stop?
No, you're all good. I don't give a fuck. But it's half the problem we have in society right now inside of America.
I was going to ask it anyway.
Well, we both go into our fucking camps and nobody wants to goddamn fucking talk. And that's half the goddamn problem. And the one thing I always loved about the fucking Marine Corps is regardless of who you are, where you're from, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, whatever, we could always fucking talk it out. Or if you had that big of a problem, we grappled it out. But we loved each other at the end. And we're sitting in such a polarized time inside of society right now that nobody's goddamn talking. We're all taking sides. Like some poor bastard gets shot. So the other side's got to be like, well, look at this happening. No attention here. Well, I'll show you more attention here. And everybody wants to fucking shout their voice louder and longer and harder and everything else. But nobody wants to fucking listen. And inside of our society right now, and I'll give you a rant to fucking put up. I don't care. As long as I'm not putting my company up there, I'll get fired. But inside this country, nobody's goddamn listening. And it's not about fucking left, right, up, down. And right and wrong is discretionary depending on where you came from, what you're doing, everything else. The kid that grew up in the streets of Brooklyn compared to the kid that grew up in the sticks of Missouri have two different thought processes. But so we both need to listen to each other to try to figure out how we can cohabitate and get along because that's freedom. I've got to respect your ability to do it because one of my son's friends, and the kid cracks me the fuck up. Oh my God, he cracks me the fuck up. He's going into the Navy here shortly. But he's, half Asian, half black. It's all the Black Lives Matter stuff starts hitting. And my son's other friend is, goes to his Black Lives Matter protest. And we have conversations about it. I'm like, in some ways you're right, in some ways you're wrong, but I'm going to listen and everything else. But here comes my friend's other friend, or my kid's other friend, who's half Asian, half black, wearing his MAGA hat right in the middle of the freaking protest. And he's built like a brick shithouse. And I'm like, dude, you got to fucking chill. I mean, we got to freaking listen to each other and not just throw ourselves out there to do it. But then at the end of the day, they all freaking kind of hug each other and love each other and everything else with no violence. But we've got to listen. And I tell some people, especially the old white dudes who I know out here, and they start blasting this, that, and the other. I'm like, listen, shut the fuck up. I go, in your lifetime, black people couldn't even fucking vote. You get that? Mm-hmm. And they're like, look at me. Look, that doesn't matter shit. They can vote now. Yeah, but we as white males, and I have no white guilt, don't get me wrong, But we as white males had 7 to 10 generations of voting and putting people into office to better suit our needs when they didn't even have a voice. Remember Lance Corporal Schmuckatelli down there? I'm with you. But if you remember being Lance Corporal Schmuckatelli, and Sergeant so-and-so just ground the shit out of you, didn't give a flying fuck about what you thought, you wanted to take a swing at that motherfucker, didn't you? Well, let's exasperate that by 30 million people.
Yeah.
And so we've got to listen, you know. And so, but I also tell them you can't freaking blast every police officer. You can't do that either. And you have to go with the individual actions of what just happened. Right, wrong, or indifferent. And then the fucking media. I hate the fucking media like nobody's business. The only thing I hate more than the media is uppity white liberals.
Yeah.
No shit. and so when you sit there with the media and they automatically, like what happened in Minneapolis, the poor hurting dude that blew his head off. It started riots in Minneapolis because it was reported as another black guy getting shot. And they didn't responsibly report it as a poor soul that was hurting, that killed himself and wanted suicide by police. That's not how it was reported. You know, the George Floyd thing, don't get me wrong, that should have never fucking happened. Because I'm sorry. You got 4 motherfuckers out there, you got the situation under control. Yeah. I'm sorry. It is what it is, but those people need to be held accountable. But we need to stop the systematic, you know, blaming everybody for everything just because of what sex you are, what freaking race you are, what anything. It's like Staff Sergeant Williams, man. I love that motherfucker. Love him. I still love him. You know, and that's where I think a lot of people are missing out, not going into the military, regardless of what it is. Like I was on one of the freaking Navy ships the other day, and you go in there and you got everything in there, and they're all talking shit to each other. And I'm like, this is what I miss about my military career.
Yep.
I'm not going in because I got tired of the bullshit politics as I picked up rank. But that's what I miss about it. You can, like, one of my best friends when I first joined, and the funniest fucking part about it, you remember when we first got to freaking Cop Blackhawk? You remember the black guy that freaking I was in my hooch with when we were transitioning over? Do you remember him or no?
No.
It was a long time ago. Well, the operations chief from the unit we ripped with, he and I were Lance Corporals together. And freaking, he was a gangbanger from Brooklyn, New York. And I was a freaking white lily white suburbanite from the Midwest. And we were able to have a great relationship as Lance Corporals. You know what I mean? Regardless of coming from 2 totally different environments, the Marine Corps gave me that special type of freaking bond and friendship of somebody totally different from me. And that's where it is the society and America and everything have gone astray. Because as I tell people, I go, we don't need to tear down the system and freaking do all this and we need to demand America live up to the promise of America. That everybody has a say, everybody has a voice, and everybody has the treatment equality under the law. We have to demand America freaking do this. Because if we don't and we crash our system, we're the only last left vessel that there is that will allow this. So we have to demand America do better in all aspects of being a citizenship of an advanced civilization. If you don't want an advanced civilization, go live in a country with a dictatorial whatever that tells you what to do every minute of your life and tells you where to go, what to do, how to do it, and you're in a caste system and you just do it. If you want advanced citizenship, you have to goddamn listen. You have to goddamn listen. You have to have the cojones to listen to the person that you hate the most give you their opinion. You might not agree with them. I don't agree with them a lot of times. But you have to listen to understand. You don't want to listen so you can attack back. You have to listen to try to understand. Some shit I can't understand, like all the free shit. You know, people going, I got 250 grand of freaking college debt. So why should I have to pay that for you? You know, and they're like, well, Well, I shouldn't have to pay that much. You could have joined the military. Well, I didn't want to join the military. Well, I did a lot of shit I didn't want to do, so I get where I get.
Yep.
Because they get pissed off at me because, like, yeah, I've got my military retirement, but I'm also earning almost a 1% income now. And they're like, well, and I pay like $50 a month for healthcare for my whole family. And they get all pissed at me. I'm like, well, you could have joined the military. Well, I didn't want to do that shit.
Yeah.
You're supposed to get everything you want in life with zero sacrifice. There's a lot of shit I didn't want to do in the Marine Corps. I didn't want to deploy away from my family. I didn't want to have to freaking bury friends, but we make certain sacrifices so we can do it. And that's what we've gotten away from as a country, because it's so easy in this country. It's so easy in this country. And you guys have seen it being over in Iraq, where people, they got shit. And there's no way to get out of it.
There's families that don't even own brooms. They use pond froms to sweep their dirt.
I tell everybody, normally every 8 years, America has a bloodless civil war. And that is special. So you can hate the opposite side, whatever. Or you can sit here and look at the magic of America that, wow, we're able to transition power without killing thousands of people and hundreds of thousands of people. And if you don't like it, like I tell my liberal friends, you should get a better candidate. And
talk about a motor boner.
Huh?
Talk about a moto boner right now.
Yeah, but I told my Republican friends, under Obama, if you don't like him, get a better candidate.
Yeah.
Other than that, you're just whining to me. You're fucking whining. I can't get over the hate. I mean, I've got a friend of mine that calls people amosexuals. I grew up with him. And I got another friend of mine that calls people libtards. And I'm like, look, I go, all you're doing is dehumanizing the other side to make it easier to kill each other down the line. If we really want to start talking about it. And, and I got them together because they were getting antsy on Facebook. And freaking one of them lives in San Diego. I'm like, look, dude, I go, you don't understand what you're trying to create here by your anger. I go, when the time comes and we start stacking bodies, I guarantee I stack mine higher than you stack yours. And you'll probably be in my stack. He's like, what? I'm like, I would kill you without conscience. And he kind of looked at me like, I go, when you're doing that kind of a hate, you're not going to come take my shit. You're not going to invade my family, and you're not going to intimidate me out of there. So we need to sit and talk. And I will tell everybody who comes on here, you need to sit and talk and listen to the other side. If you want to watch a great podcast, I'll tell you a great podcast was Ben Shapiro and Joe Rogan. If you haven't seen that one, watch it. Because they have ideas going back and forth.
And they're opposite. They're opposing ideas.
And there was zero animosity. There wasn't any yelling. There wasn't any name calling. There wasn't anything. It was a civil conversation. And that's what we need to have in America. We've always had kind of crazy politics. Don't get me wrong. If you look historically. And I tell them, like, where are you from, Nard? I know you live up north now. Where are you from?
I'm from California. I live where I came from.
Okay, and you're just a Missouri boy, right?
Just get old fashioned.
All right. I tell people, because I still have a lot of friends and family in the South who are getting all pissed off about all the freaking statues coming down. And, sensitive subjects on this. And like I tell them, I'm like, okay, you want to sit here whining and crying about what's happening in our streets right now. Don't get me wrong. I don't like it. I don't want it. I don't want anything. I go, you know why what year were those statues put up? Most of them.
The 60s?
No.
No, way before that.
Now came in 1920, the time they established Jim Crow laws. Mm-hmm. Most of the reasons we named the bases in the South after Confederate generals was because the South was a bunch of crybaby bitches who couldn't get over. They got their asses whipped. And so that was a way to heal the nation. And then the statues were put up under Jim Crow to establish Southern dominance again. Some people call it white supremacy, whatever you want to do. But they were put up to shut up all the crybabies in the South. I have friends of mine who want to kick my ass for saying that. If they were put up in the 1860s, different story. They were put up in the 1920s.
And they're cheap. There's no reason that they're still standing structurally. It's white oppression, literally.
They were put up very quickly at that time when they passed Jim Crow laws. And I'm like, it's bullshit. And then I'm like, well, that's my heritage. So 4 years that happened between 1860 and 65, when we pulled away from the Union as the South, established the Confederate States of America, basically traitors to the United States. To me, and don't get me wrong, I don't see the symbol of the Confederate flag as hate as some people, but I can understand it. But flying the Confederate flag for some people is similar to flying the Nazi flag. You know, it was a lost cause. You got your ass whipped.
Yeah.
My family got their asses whipped.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And I don't, but it's history and we should never forget it. Don't get me wrong. It should never be forgotten. It is history. It's not something you can say, let's get over it. It should be museums, the same as they have a Holocaust museums. You should have plantations so people could always go back to see how we treated people in the past, which was wrong. So you've got to have the historical fact about it. You have to, because if not, you're doomed to repeat it.
Yeah. And in having the historical fact too, you also got to keep in mind that, so when our founding fathers, which we've said this before, but our founding fathers, they started our country, they didn't understand the concepts that they were putting down. Well, they didn't. So there's this word, but this word, freedom, for everybody at their time, it wasn't comprehensible. They didn't think properly. And as time,
Black people weren't people back then. They
weren't
property.
people back then. Mm-hmm.
But the beautiful part about the Constitution, it is a black mark and it is a birth defect of the Great Compromise. That is a birth defect of our nation on the Constitution.
Yeah.
The beautiful part about it, though, is the North made the South at least admit that the slaves were human. It might have been just to give them freaking voting rights, so the South had more power on voting for population. That's kind of what it was about. And it was still wrong. I don't condone it. I don't do anything on it. But the North made them think that they had to say they're at least 3/5 of a person, which is horrible. It's disgusting in today's age to think that way. But it gave us the ability to start a nation, which eventually that set the course for the Civil War 100 years later when it came down to it, which was a necessary war. And it wasn't a civil war, if you want to know that. The Civil War was not a civil war. That's just how we put it, because we weren't fighting over the same government. We were trying to split. So that's we could become a better union, but the federal government got more power after the Civil War. But you got to go back, because you can't believe in the 1619 Project either, because what happens if America was never founded? Then we're broke up, you have the British, the Germans would eventually have gotten some colonies over here, probably in Michigan and that area. The French would have had there, and then all the wars from Europe would have carried over here. They would have exploited the Native Americans probably as slaves, as European powers, especially the Spanish going up the west as they were converting them all to freaking Christianity and freaking having another insurrection.
And none of us would be here. I don't even think the blacks might have got here at some point with all the others, though. But
no, the blacks would have been brought over in the transatlantic slave trade, because they first came here in 1619 on the transatlantic trade. All that would have still happened, but it would have been broken up into different colonies, and probably would be a fragmented nation, similar to what the Middle East is now, or Africa, because the European powers would have broken us apart. Yep. And it would have been a whole different kind of world, where it kind of comes down to it. So you got to kind of look at the ugliness of where it came, but the promise of where we can go. You know what I mean? Because we have a living document. The Constitution is a living document that we can change. It takes 2/3 of the states. And what I have to explain to some of my friends is it was built with a perfect design of a constitutional republic. So everybody has a voice. Your states are your freaking democracies, and the nation is a republic. So you have a true democracy in California or Missouri or whatever else. But all those get to send their representatives to the federal government as a republic. Because once you go to the democracy, then you have LA and New York City, pretty much their policies running the entire nation. And so your people in Missouri and your Wyomings and your Utahs and your Tennessees, you want to see a real war? Wait till you crush those people and you try to tell them how they got to live their lives.
Yeah.
And so you got to let some things kind of go, and you got to kind of do some things here and there. And I don't mean to get on a rant. It's a weird fucking time we're in right now with our country.
It's beautifully put, my amigo. It's beautifully put. I couldn't have said it.
It's a weird fucking time, and we all got to keep our goddamn heads.
And
So, Tom, while we still got you, Caldwell and I talked about this earlier. We have a list of a few things. I'm going to fire some quick questions at you. You know, first thing that comes to your head.
Great.
So, what is your favorite MRE?
Wow. I believe it was spaghetti and meatballs.
spaghetti and meatballs. Cousin, Chili Mac's cousin.
Yeah, Chili Mac was number 2, but then anything with freaking pepper jack cheese.
Oh yeah.
What is your favorite weapon?
Favorite weapon? MSgt Echo 3 machine gun.
What's your favorite non-weapon piece of gear?
The John Wayne.
Which is the strap?
No, that's old school for you guys. It was a little can opener to open up sea rations. It's a little bit can opener. M58 can opener. We used to call it the John Wayne.
What was your favorite duty station?
Oh, hard one. Ooh, hard one. I had so many good ones. I would have to say Nairobi, though.
What was your favorite rank?
Staff sergeant. Sergeant or staff sergeant, but I have to go with, I'll go sergeant.
Let's see. What is your favorite flavor of crayon?
The best one.
Red, baby.
But no, the color red, the red crayon, because
Yes.
the green crayon is the grape. I don't know people don't know that.
More like cherry.
That's okay.
That's all I got. Caldwell, what do you got? You got any favorites?
Oh, nope. That covered it. The crayon was the one I really had.
Well, have you ever see my picture on Facebook I put on there?
Of course I did.
The giant crayon?
Yeah. Yep. And you know, I don't know if you guys hear the chaos going outside my door, but the children love their father, so I gotta go tend to them. But
Me first.
we want to do round 2 with other people because you still have your life as a civilian, and we didn't cover that, and that's equally important because you seem to be doing very well for yourself, and having you on has literally challenged some of the things I've even probably said over the podcast. So I'm glad that I got to see you. It reminds me more of who I am. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate the time and reaching out to me. It was fun. I'd gladly do it again. Just give me a little bit of time. But let me know, and I'll see if I can get you people outside of the 1-4 world or that community to maybe come on with you, just to kind of expand your horizons and maybe your fan base.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's exactly
we'll see
right.
where do you post this on, like YouTube?
Yeah, right now we're only on YouTube. We're going to be doing this will be our first video with we put audio up, the other ones. This will be the first video, and then we're going to go on to audio only, some streaming devices and stuff.
There's other networks.
Yeah, Spotify, Apple, Google Play, stuff like that.
Yeah.
No, well, I wish you guys the best of luck with it. And anytime I can come on to BS, I love talking with Marines, man. That's one thing I miss is I love my Marines. If you guys need anything, reach out to me. Hit me up maybe next week, and I'll see if I can find you another guest. I'll reach out to a few and see what I can do. But I'll see if I can reach out to Van Horn.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
And see what he's going. You might want to come on and promote his book.
What was his book? Yes.
Left of Bang.
Okay, yeah, I wrote that down. I'm going to check that out.
Okay, I got to read that one. So.
And then if you guys start getting followers, I'll get you on with Major Husing, retired, with Echo and Ramadi. So I'll do that one, and there's a few other. If I can get Hancock to you, it'd be a tough one. He did his movie called Bastards Road.
I didn't see it. I'll check that out, though.
Bastards Road. He got a lot of. Basically, he started walking across the country to go to all of his fallen brothers' houses, and he walked all over America, and he made a movie called Bastards Road.
Oh, I got to check that out.
He was in Fox Company 2-4. I barely knew him back then, whatsoever. But I'll reach out and make calls if you guys need. If you start getting enough following where they can get some exposure, you know what I mean. They're gonna want to.
Yeah. We would. Those are the big time guests.
Yeah, but I'll see if I
can you get me General Mattis?
Mattis.
That's.
I got Dunford's email, but I see Mattis from time to time still.
I showed you the picture. You know, my middle child is named after him, and he sent me that picture signed. And then you ruined my day because you're like, I know him, and I was like, well, screw you.
He was my battalion commander, my regimental commander. Then I saw him when he was
Wow.
he doesn't know me like he did Johnson because Johnson was on his PSD. But freaking yeah.
Now we're talking Secretary of Defense General Mattis. That piece. Didn't he write a piece on Trump, or am I mixing up?
Yeah, he did. Him and Trump don't see eye to eye. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of chaos right now, and it's like I can't sit on either side because there's a lot of people I really respect that don't like him, and there's a lot of people I really respect that do like him. And I'm just sitting here in the middle, fucking drinking my wine, going, "What the hell are we doing?"
Yeah. It's hard. It's so hard.
It is, but we'll see what we can do, and we'll try. As you guys keep going, hit me up, and I'll see if I can sling you a guest or two from one of my old units because I'll take care of you. If you guys get famous one day, just buy me a freaking bottle of wine or something.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. We'll name a wing of our compound after you.
There you go. There you go.
All right. So take it easy, Top. It was good talking to you. It's always good seeing you. Thanks for coming on. Hope to see you again soon.
All right, brothers. Love you. Be safe.
Love you.
Take care of each other, and if you need anything, reach out.
Semper Fi, yeah.
Bye. We clear?
Yeah, we're clear. All clear.
All clear.
You good with that? You like that?
God, that was the best